Recording.
You guys catch the characters back here. That's
Okay. Me, Harlan, Mike Kerr. Stand up about 1:30 on Friday or Saturday night.
okay. I don't know Mike Kerr.
South End guy.
Okay, he lives out your way.
No, he lives in the South End. He was just visiting Harlan.
Okay, got it.
You thought you were going to preach up there, so.
Get ready.
10-minute sermon, that's it. Be a good Lutheran guy here, but looking at the watch, the service has got to get over an hour, so come on.
It's hot out here.
Yeah, we're pretty close here, huh?
Yeah, fired up.
All right.
Okay. Tammy? All right. I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled July 1st Sylvania Township Board of Trustee meeting at 4 p.m.
Call the roll, Mr. Crandall.
Here.
Mr. Mahoney.
Here.
Mr. Genowine.
Here.
Simcoe, here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anybody have any corrections or things they want to change from the minutes from June 17th meeting?
I'm good.
Fine.
Okay, Mr. Mahoney.
Make a motion, please.
Mr.
Yes.
Crandall.
Second.
I'll call the roll, Mr. Crandall.
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney.
Yes.
Mr. Genowine.
Yes. Mr. Zeidler, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
I have none at this time.
Any trustees? Mr.
No.
Simcoe?
No, thank you.
Hearing of the public on specific agenda items. Did anyone sign in?
I think. No.
All right, well, that puts you up, Darrell.
Good afternoon. I've got Resolution 14072, authorization of abatement of vegetation and/or debris. I'd like to make a couple changes on that. The bottom two, the vacant lots on Galloway and Red Hawk Court, have been cut, so we do not need to have those abated. The other three still need to be abated, and with the board's permission, I'd like to add 3 properties that have come up. One for grass, that's 5010 Heather, and 2 for debris, 5831 Riga and 5952 Rudyard.
With those 3 added to the list, I would like to offer Resolution 14-072, authorize abatement of vegetation and/or debris.
Second.
Mr. Crandall.
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney.
Yes.
Mr. Genowine.
Yes.
Thank you. And I just have one other thing, just an FYI. John Amos on our Board of Zoning Appeals has tendered his resignation. He's in the process of moving to Indianapolis. We knew this, if you recall, we discussed it at the end of last year, beginning of this year. So we will have an opening on the board. I'm not sure how this board wants to pursue that, whether we want to appoint somebody at this time or wait until the end of the year and make an appointment. We do have an alternate that could step in the meantime.
Didn't we have one application and one left over or something?
Yeah,
I think we did.
Yeah.
I don't remember who it was.
his term ends the end of 2015.
But I think last year we had 3 people that applied.
Yeah, I believe Susan's got at least a couple applications.
Can you put those applications in our mailboxes, and we'll vote on it at our next meeting?
Okay.
We'll take a look at them and call them, and if we have any concerns, we can address them with the candidates, and then we'll put that on the next agenda.
Okay.
Also, do you have do you have any alternates that you might recommend?
Yeah, we currently have both
No,
our
I
boards.
meant that have attended, participated, because I guess we could do that too, right? We could take an alternate.
And move them up to his
Yeah.
term, and then bring somebody in for the alternate's term?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, put the alternates' information in our box as well, and we'll take a look at all three or however many we have and see where we want to go. I know we had kind of discussed a possible appointment, and I don't know what we...
Well,
I know there's been
Yeah,
discussion.
Don
so-
Miller for sure was one that
Yeah,
was said he'd love to be,
Right.
you know, be active with it, so that might be somebody to consider too.
yeah.
well, I think we should. I think
Yeah.
he's probably the one I'm thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you would do that, and then make sure it's
Sure.
on the agenda for next meeting, that'd be great.
And then we're okay on any terms on BZA then, or we all set on BZA? This was,
That is the BZ.
oh, what about the zoning board, are we okay on that?
Yeah, we've got a
Okay.
full board.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks, Darrell.
Thanks, Darrell. Next up is Greg with his monthly report.
Good afternoon. The monthly report for June has been submitted for your review. Overall, another good month of completing projects and such. Curb repair over 200 feet in the meadows, and we'll continue the remaining section there. Letter D, I'm very pleased to inform the board that we are now tracking in the fuel depot. That was an issue that's plagued us for the last 6 months. We finally worked all that out, and as well as the crosswalk LED flashers, which are now operational at Corey Road and Springbrook Drive. We participated in the Safety Town, as you all know, that occurred, and also at Camp Miaconda. They had a Big Wheels Cub Day camp, about 130 participants there. Other information is posted for your review, and I'll have 4 resolutions at the next meeting. Mid-July through August will be very busy months, so that's all I have for the board.
Greg, I would like to thank you getting your report ready. I mean, I know today's only the first, so you didn't have much time. Thanks.
Right. You're welcome. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Next up is Fire Department. You have anything? Anything for the Fire Department? And Police Department, you have anything?
No, I don't.
Anything for the Police Department?
How's the traffic with the intersection of King and Brent? Is it are we noticing any backups, or do we have any concerns out there? Or?
We're writing tons of tickets going out the west end of Whispering Road. I mean, lots and lots of them. And we're trying to increase our presence on Country Walk there a little bit too. But there's not a whole lot we can do unless they're violating the law in some way, and the speed seems to be okay too. So, well, for future reference, I talked to Ron Meyer today with the county. There's some concerns, you saw some emails about cut through Pacesetter Park. We're going to start that roundabout here in about a week or so. And I think we've got a way to address that issue like we did with Timberstone School last year.
I think Pacesetter's going to be resurfacing their parking lots too here shortly, so that might
That'd be a good time.
end its
Yeah,
resolve itself.
We can put it under lights.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Next up under the administrators, the fire levy discussion. I'll turn over to trustees and Dave Simco in just a second, but last meeting, we gave some dates of when we were looking for information. I put together some packets, the team put together some packets that we gave to the trustees, and hopefully we got all the information out there that was needed, and I will now turn it over to Dave, because we did do some research on the levy dollar amount, and Mr. Simco, if you want to start on that, and I'll help out.
Well, I sent out a memo to the board, and principally John and I, Zeitler, were looking at first types of levies. I think the trustees wanted to know what sort of levies were available, and then coming up with an amount based on what the fire department had proposed trying to do and what the trustees could kind of live with in the way of a levy. And so the types, just quickly, there's a new additional levy, which that has a maximum length of 5 years, only maximum length. At that point, it ceases collection unless it's renewed by the voters. And what could happen with that is that if it's not renewed, then your fire department is really in a jam. And if you need additional funds, you really end up having 2 levies on the ballot. And so we would not recommend that type of a levy. A replacement levy actually makes some sense when you have, because you can have a 1 mil levy, but it was passed a long time ago and it's really only collecting effectively 0.3 mils or 0.4 mils or 0.2 mil. But the problem is with that I see is that you kind of have to cobble enough of those together to get up to what you think you need, and then they're really very confusing to try to pass replacement levies. People kind of get lost in it all, and I do too. I've been trying to figure them. So, you'll try to explain it to someone that doesn't have that much familiarity with it. And so, a renewal levy, we really don't have any in place that could be renewed. So, the levy that we're recommending is a new continuing levy. And this is a continuous levy that does not expire. That is what we passed in 2008. It is a levy that provides like stable funding for the department. It can be relied on in the long-term budgeting analysis. It's not going to really go away. Currently, all of our levies that we have for the police and the fire are all continuing levies. And so then we come around really to like the amount of the levy, and we considered various amounts, like a 1 mil up to like a 2 mil levy, and we ended up feeling that 1.25, 1 mil, which is out of the question, 1.25, I did not think really, what my feeling was, it wouldn't get us out far enough where we needed to be. When you start getting up closer to the 2 mil levy, it's harder to pass. We're in a climate that we have to be also mindful of what we really want to pass in the way of a levy, and that or try to pass. We still have to get it to the voters then. So we ended up, we were looking though to try to get out. First we talked about another 5 years, hoping to get out to 7. But we ended up kind of feeling that trying to get out in 7 years with the levy, making a commitment to the voters that we get out 7 years, and this way we're not on the ballot right away. This is what we were able to do with this last levy. We committed to the voters when we punched the numbers and heard from the auditor that we thought it would be 5 years, and we ended up actually getting out to 7, as we all know. And I think the reason we were able to do that is with the trustees that have been on board, especially in the last 3 years. We have really, and I've set it up here, we've changed the attitude and the cooperation between, it's not just management, so to speak, trustees trying to get after all the departments and get resentment. We've worked to develop a cooperative attitude, educating, explaining to people, and plus the nice thing is you can read about it in the paper, and that how tight funding is for all governmental entities. So we've really got everybody on board, and so we ended up concluding that a 1.5 mil levy would get us out 7 years, we thought, and with any luck, it may go a little further. I had a neighbor that came to me and talked about the police department, and that they just thought the police department was just out there, and they didn't know how it got paid for and that. And I said, well, there's all these levies. And they said, well, I don't even remember voting for a levy. I said, well, the last one I think was 2003, and we're projected to go out to 2020, I think, or so, and that. And wouldn't it be nice if we could do that with the fire? Right now, we'll get out to about 2021, we think, with the fire, and that, with this levy. And that, what it'll do, it would restore patient transport, but it's to supplement the private sector. It's to supplement the private sector. It would It'll be about 300 to 400 calls a year, we think. It would also provide a backup service to Lucas County EMS. When they needed a vehicle, we could use our vehicle, we would get a call, and we can bill for that. We think it would help us with our part-time firefighters, get us up to 10 and fund them. And we'd end up adding 3 full-time firefighters over the next 7 years. Equipment-wise, we replace some equipment. I won't go into all of that, but we need to, and we've been trying to establish a replacement schedule. In the past, we always haven't done that. We've been doing that the last several years. We've been working on that, but we need to get on a schedule. I mean, businesses do that. We need to do that because equipment ages and that. I do think that we did, and hopefully the voters have recognized this, that we did, stretch that levy out to 7 years. We did replace the fire stations, 3 of them, and renovated 1 of them. Did a good job with the money. And I think we kept, the budget reflects from 5 to 7 years, we've kept our costs under control. We think that there'll be increased calls that'll be coming if you just take a conservative view. We think there'll be additional calls coming in over the course of time as this levy's in place. We've tried to factor that in and adding a little bit of personnel. But we've also tried to, we still won't be up to the personnel we were, I think, in #03 when we were at our peak in personnel. We would still be below that at the end of this levy when we had 3 people. And so I think our department's well respected by our citizens. Our people come to us to train because of the expertise that we have. And so I'm hoping that my recommendation would be then that we would go with the new continuing 1.5 mil levy. If there's any questions for me, I'd try to answer them. But.
Well, I'd like to just add on that, as Dave said, we analyzed the department's needs, and the 1.5 mil levy will bring in about $1,820,000 a year. A person with a $150,000 market value house will pay about $78, $79 more a year, and that's all the more they're going to pay. As Dave said, this levy will be locked in at that rate, so if your house goes up because of appreciation or the market says the house is worth more, you'll still only pay $78.75 a year, so you don't have to worry about it increasing because your house value increases. The only time this levy would increase and bring in more dollars is with new construction. So if somebody builds a house out here, they're going to pay their taxes as everybody else does. And so that's where the levy would bring in more money, with new construction.
Would the current labor contract mandate that we hire 2 full-time firefighters? I mean, I'm assuming if we get into the transport business, we're looking at next year. And would those 2 firefighters be added next year?
In our analysis, I think it says that we are looking at 2 firefighters next year, and the reason and I'll let the chief address it, one of the reasons we're looking at is ideally in the chief's world, and I can't disagree with him, he would like to have a 20-20-20 shift, 20 employees on A shift, 20 employees on B shift, 20 employees on C shift. Right now, he has 19, 18, 18 employees. With 2 additional employees, it would take it to 20, 19, 19. And that's where his staffing would be. So there would be 1 person on 2 shifts. The B and C shifts, I think, is the lower ones. And so that's
what's that answer? Is that yes or no, or what's that answer? Would we have to hire 2 if we started the transport?
If we start transporting, the labor agreement provides for 2.
And is that built into our projections?
Yes.
Adding 2 people next year? I thought the report I saw, we were hiring somebody 3 years from now.
The report should have on that one sheet, did you get the report out of your mailbox? That was the...
I printed off everything you sent me at 4:30 on Friday. I didn't have much time to read it, but I read it over the weekend. If there was something else in my mailbox, no, I didn't get to it.
Well, if it's one you got Friday, it should be in it. It says on the manning of it. Let me get to the manning.
No, I can answer that. I think it's built into the...
It is built in.
511, John.
So we're looking at hiring them next year?
Yes. Okay. And I think the thinking is that these people,
I could have swore I saw it was 3 years out. I mean, was that in one of the previous ones?
The one you got Friday should have said 2 next year.
Okay.
Yeah, the one you got Friday said 2. Originally, I had 1 in 16, along with the chief, and 1 in 17.
But John,
after looking at the calls and trying to address that 17% that we're not serving now, we felt the two should come up, so that was a change.
Okay.
Let me mention one more thing, John. Just one more, with those firefighters, they are not going to just be, because it's harder to justify 300 to 400 calls. That is probably 17, I think, % of the calls that the private sector picks up. The private sector will still get the majority of the calls, the vast majority of the calls. But these people will be utilized at the stations too. They're going to be like part-time, basically, because we're kind of part-time.
I don't think we're part-time. I mean, we've got 20 people in 19, 18, and 18, 24/7. I mean, that's not part-time.
No, but they'll be part-time, they'll be running the transport unit kind of part-time, because only 300 to 400 runs, and then the rest of the time they'll be working either on fire inspections, to try to minimize taking trucks out to places, and going out on runs.
That would still mandate us to hire them if we did open it up, whether it was for part-time or full-time?
The way we've looked at the contract, I mean, contract says this, and, I mean, my kind of thinking is we agreed to this in the contract. We signed it.
No, we didn't. It was in there before I got on the board.
Yeah, but whenever whenever you get the contract to renew it,
yeah,
it's in there, and we agreed to it. We didn't take it out.
Okay.
So that's kind of how it is.
Well, let's say, just look at your calls. Back in '08, after the levy passed, 3 laid-off firemen were called back, and 2 retirements were replaced. And that would be back in '08, and that's 6,400 responses, and the calls are there also. And that has increased to 8285. Well, that's for this year, I'm sorry. Last year, 8123. So the calls are continuing to increase.
But we're still only averaging 3 to 4 calls a day from station 2, 3, and 4.
Yes.
I mean, you think we need more people to handle
About
those 3
half
calls
the
a day?
About half the calls are station 1.
Well, that's because we run 2 squads out of there, too.
You're correct. Yeah, the county's there.
Yeah. The safety inspector, is that a 24-on shift, or is that going to be a 8 to 5 job?
We did not calculate a safety inspector in this proposal. It would be, if we hired a safety inspector, it would be an 8-hour-a-day job, 40 hours a week, to take that position.
That comes up in the 3rd hire, John, which is out there quite a ways.
Well, the first
So
2 were out there a ways, too, and they jumped up pretty quick, though.
What's
So
that?
the first 2 were out there a ways, too, and now they're next year.
Yes.
So I would expect this one to creep up there, too, how they always do, but...
But
I have to say, I'm concerned. I think something this board has said from the start is we need to all be on the same page and in lockstep here. I feel we've not gotten any public input on this. I think right now we've got a grievance from the labor union that doesn't put me in a very good mode, thinking that things couldn't go wrong. And my 2 concerns are: A, this thing fails in the fall, and we're in a worse position than we are today, or B, it passes and we don't fulfill our commitment to the community to go out 7 years. And that's where the numbers keep changing and stuff, and certainly I haven't seen the annual report for 2013 yet. So again, I'm kind of at a little bit of a disadvantage when I'm pouring through these numbers and trying to figure out, certainly the safety and the response of our firefighters to our community is first and foremost, but, the next thing below that is money, and how do we fund this and how do we pay for it? So I'm not convinced that I've had enough information to make this decision, and I look back on some of the news articles that's been written since the first of the year. I've asked for a full business plan on how this transport was going to work, and I know it continues to evolve today, but I just feel like I'm not at a comfort level, and again, my biggest concern is the levy fails in the fall. It's going to put us behind even further.
When you say no public input, it's out to all the community organizations, and I have met with 3. I think, Dave, you met with 1, so we've heard back from 4 of them.
Who were they, or what were they, and what was their input? Because I didn't get it.
No, you got the changes. John Zeiler's probably made 35 changes to the original.
I mean, is it true the city's not going to endorse this if we go into the transport business? I mean, that's what I've heard over and over again.
I have not heard that at all.
You've never heard that?
No.
I personally talked to...
But the city would not endorse it if we went, I have not heard that.
No, I've met twice with the mayor. I don't know about the safety committee, but I did talk to Kevin Aller, their safety director, 2 weeks ago when we were wrapping up these final changes. And they had nothing additional.
This is State Family Services, when I went there, I kind of laid out the levy plan to them and that, and their board, they had about 15 people there, they just have a general positive attitude about fire facts. Oh, geez, Kevin Crow. You know him? He ran against my wife for precinct committee person, and he's there, and he was out at Wildwood, and got stung by a bee, and started puffing up, and they called 911, and the fire came out and got into the, so I think we've got ourselves a potential co-chairman if because he's had the service. But they all were very supportive of the fire department and the amount we talked about, and in particular, they like the notion of the public-private cooperation effort on the transport system. They like that. By we not trying to put the private sector out of business, but work with them on it.
Do we have anything on that in writing, what our public and private partnership is going to be? Because again, with a grievance filed by the labor union, I like this stuff spelled out so we don't have to come down and err on, at the expense of our community.
At this time, we have nothing in writing, but we definitely could put a plan together.
Yeah.
If we know we're having, I mean, it was all based on, we have the levy or not, but.
But we basically have a system in place with the county. I mean,
Right.
the county EMS, the system's in place. What we're hoping to accomplish with 300 to 400 runs is the time, first of all, I don't want to get in the business of transportation. I don't like when government gets in that business. I think the private sector has done a good job. We've got a very large employer in the city of Sylvania that wants to continue to run this. ProMedica still does, we have over 2,000 runs. So where we've seen, where we need help at is the time where people are waiting too long. And that's been kind of my goal personally, to see how can we get to that point where the poor patient isn't sitting there waiting.
And that, when we did the analysis, that's where we came up to the 300 to 400
So I'm not
runs.
sure, I don't know how we could, and help me if there's something else, but the plan is kind of in place with the county. They're still going to dispatch. If they can't dispatch, we can't get somebody there on time, then we're going to dispatch one of our troops.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
It's not in writing, but that.
But John brings up a good question and a good point is, this budget is not based on, if we need a transport, we would need a lot more than 2 guys to do 24/7 transport.
No, that's what they bargained for several years ago, Neil. And that's my fear, is we hire them and now we've got a full-time transport unit. What's going to prevent us from doing that?
Let me finish here. If we have the 2 that we're looking for, the 2 that we're looking to hire, yes, it is in the contract, but is for our core business. Okay, it
says too specific for fire.
No, just we have to hire 2. It doesn't say that they have to.
It doesn't have to be for transport. It doesn't have to be for transport.
Actually, what it says is the staffing will go to 58. We're at 56 if we transport the staffing.
What we really need,
I thought we were at 57.
That's counting the 56 platoon one training
So
captain.
this levy's about our core business and taking care of doing what we do best out here with 95, paramedics, firemen, and the transport unit is an auxiliary that we're, again, the private sector we want to handle with the, when we need help, we're going to be able to hopefully pull somebody out to handle that.
Once again, to answer Mr. Genowine question, it's not in writing, but talking with the county and fire chief and the staff and that, it would be our goal if the county calls, and I'll just, for example, calls mobile care, and they don't have a unit available, calls ProMedica, they don't have a unit available, they call us, and we send our unit. And then that would alleviate.
ProMedica has a base in the township, so we got two providers.
And between those two, and last year they provided, out of the 2,100 calls, they provided about 1,600. So, Mr. Mahoney, we don't see where we'd be taking any business from the private sector.
I want to be crystal clear on this, though, John, is we're not adding any, we're adding two people on our core business. I mean, I don't want the voters to be misled that we're adding a bunch of new features here. Our township has grown. We've had more calls. We need some help, and we need to bring two employees on to help. It's not we're adding all these bells and whistles to make up for, to add on to a levy. We're just replacing what we need with two folks based on how we've grown and how our nature of our
And as Mr. Chairman
constituents
said,
are.
the number of calls are going up, and our projections show that they will continue to go up, and we projected very conservatively. I think the average has been like 5%, we're projecting 3%. But as I said earlier, the chief now is at 19, 18, 18. This would take us to 20, 19, 19. And once again, that's how many are working that shift. Now, when you have vacations and sick and FMLA and that takes them down to maybe 16, 15. So you want to have that higher number to protect when people go on vacation and are sick and are not able to be at the station. We still have to have a core group there to run the department.
I'd rather have this written out than having an arbitrator come in and tell us how we got to do this in 6 months or a year, because, we negotiated things in the past, and now we're arbitrating them right now, and I have a bad feeling unless we have this more defined in terms of what we're going to do, that I don't want to be at someone else's mercy later.
I've been through this pretty carefully. I think that's why we made the change to two.
For next year.
Well, and there's no connection. Those two guys aren't sitting there running this patient transport. It's adding one guy per shift. They're not even at the same stations, wherever the chief puts this piece of equipment, so.
Well, where is it going to be? I mean, that's where I want to see the business plan and see how do we plan on using this, and how do we plan on serving the community instead of just adding staff and expenses.
We can get you that. You've seen it.
Yeah, after I vote on
Well,
it.
You've seen the increase in calls.
Mr. Gentleman,
But
I
we're
would
still at 3 or 4 per station per day. I mean, that's not overtaxing. I mean, Station 1 handles 10, stations in Toledo handle 12 to 14 a day.
But I doubt that patient transport will be out of Station 1. Oh, gee, I can't imagine. But he's got.
That's where we built the rooms for it, isn't it? On the fire station?
I don't.
We have enough capabilities to put individuals at any one of our stations. We built it for growth for the future, hoping that it would last another 85 years like the first station lasted, so we tried to build it for the future. With cross-staffing, and we've gone to cross-staffing of the truck and the engine, per your guys' suggestion. You guys had a suggestion that we do that. We looked at it, we evaluated it, we thought it's not going to hurt us as far as that goes, so we did take into account your feedback that you gave us with the truck, the use of the truck. So now we're cross-staffing the engine and the truck both at number 3's fire station, at number 4's fire station. So they are taking engines out on all runs unless the truck is actually specifically needed for an accident or fire. So in order to continue that cross-staffing of those vehicles, we would have to take into account Station 1 or Station 2 as the possible locations for our transport unit. In keeping in mind with that, if that's what you wanted to continue to do.
I mean, I think that makes the most sense, you know.
Mhm.
I see in here too that we're looking at other revenues in terms of fees and expenses. I mean, the thing that I look at is, 15% of our calls go to assisted living residences in our community. That concerns me as well. I mean, we're sending 2 trucks there every time they call, so, we're looking at 1,300 calls there, or responses there a year.
Mr. Chairman, we're sending one engine, ALS engine. If it's an ALS call, then the life squad also goes. Our life squad goes, or another life squad from Lucas County. But traditionally, we send one engine there on an EMS call. On a possible fire call, we send one engine.
How many of them are fires?
Of those?
Yeah.
I did not break those out for you.
Okay. I can't imagine more than 2 or 3. I mean, most
Well,
of those are patients.
Yeah, we get a lot of alarms. We don't get actual fires. Actually, when Oakley Village put toasters and ovens in their rooms, we have a tendency to get more smoke scares than anything else.
Yeah.
But traditionally, we only send one unit there, one EMS unit. Again, if it's a life-threatening run, a heart attack, a stroke, we do send a life squad. And if our life squad isn't in service, they send a life squad from somewhere else in Lucas County.
And Mr., excuse me. The EMS unit, we're being reimbursed by the county.
Yes, we're being reimbursed by staffing the EMS unit $722,000 a year.
That's been happening since, the inception.
Well, no,
That's all factored into our revenue and expenses as well.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Well,
Mr. Chairman, one of the things that my goal is you had concerns, and I did too, about the union contract and make sure we have it. Before we would hire those 2 firefighters, I would say we'd have to have an agreement with the union, what it specifies in that. I'm not going to hire them.
Well, I prefer to have it now, so I know what to expect. I certainly didn't expect this
we could have
last grievance.
Well, we can start talking to the union and have it, if that's the goal, could have it in place before the election, but my goal would be to have it hammered out before we actually hire the people. We're not going to hire the 2 and then say, oh, we screwed up and, let's go to the arbitrator. So my goal would be to have an agreement in place before we hire the 2 people. And that agreement would be okay by you, the trustees, to your satisfaction.
Well, I mean, my last concern is our tax rate here in Sylvania Township are one of the highest in the region. And, with our schools coming back very soon with us, we're only going to stay ahead of that curve. Inflation for this year is already over 2%. People have less money, and that's putting us at a less competitive advantage. That's why the city is annexing our property and giving these property owners property tax abatements. So, I think the writing or the stuff is on the wall, and I just, again, I'm not comfortable with what we have here in front of us and what the moving parts are going to be moving forward. So that's about it.
John, my stomach's been tied in knots through this whole process because, like you, I don't like paying taxes. But we still need to service there are people out here that need service, and I don't care if you can look at the numbers 3, 5, whatever the numbers are per day. I can look out here, and I guarantee it, there one of us or somebody that knows somebody that's had the use of the Sylvania Township Fire Department, paramedics, fire department. Okay, and the things that the chief has talked in over the last 2 years about how ProMedic is able to, we can help decipher, we can help with the trauma before we get them into the emergency room quicker than a lot of other townships. And the things that we have done out here, yes, I'm sick about the tax. I'm sick about having to pay more than we have to, but we have a quality of life out here that we have to continue to sustain. And you're right, our demographics out here have changed. Just look at our last few zone changes. I mean, they're more elderly. I mean, there's still kids out here. We still got a lot of good young families moving out here because look at all the subdivisions. I mean, somebody's got to service these. You know, and again, I hear you, John, I'm with you, you know, you and I agree on a lot of things. This is one that you know, I hate asking for money, but man, this is something, we've run a tight ship. I mean, if you look at the last 3 years, you know, you and I especially, because John's new here, but you know, every month we say, hey, Chief, great job on the budget. Hey, you know, we're under, you know, great job keeping controls, great job of cutting back on capital expense, great job. And then, now we're to the point where, you know what, we need some help. We need a little money. And this is where I look at it and say, you know, this is kind of my position on it. So anyways, that's kind of how I feel.
Well, it's extremely difficult to staff something for 24 hours, you know, because there's peaks and valleys.
No doubt.
Increased demand during certain times, and it's just, you know, again, it concerns me to add 2 more people to that, and those costs will start to add up really quick. And, you know, I know in the past, in very recent past, the union has said, oh, we'll go 6 months and input the transport thing, but after 6 months, you've got to be forced to the contract, which was to hire 2 people. And personally, you know, I get a little frustrated when we have a union telling us how to run a fire department. And, you know, I think it's a good partnership in terms of, hey, you know, we've got the best out here. I mean, like I said, I've benefited from the fire department. They've had many calls on my family, and they do a great job. But again, when it comes down to dollars, that's what I preached on in the last election, and I think most of the people who know me in this community will say that I hold everybody accountable when money's involved. And at this point in time, I don't feel like there's been enough to give me the confidence moving forward with this levy vote. But
John, when you asked for the hours of service, if you look, the low hours are 1 a.m. to 5 a.m.
I think they drop off at 10 o'clock, John, and then they pick back up around 8 or 9 in the morning.
Lowest hours, but that's 10% of the calls. So if you're saying we darken the station,
well, we've got 20 people on staff at that, you know, at those times. So
well, you're still darkening. I guess that's what you're doing. You cited Sandusky. I looked that up. They're doing brownouts 3 days a week on one station. They're sure hearing from those people saying, well, wait a minute, everybody else is, you know, and then the other.
I'm not saying change what we're doing. I'm just concerned about adding staff and where we're going to go.
I thought you were saying,
let's change. You know, if the levy fails, we're going to be really forced with some difficult decisions. Right. And those brownout choices and things are going to be right here in front of us. So that's why I've always said we all need to be on the same page. Management, trustees, labor, everybody, and I don't feel we're there right now. Well, there's been something in the contract for several years, and now we're having, you know, an arbitrator or somebody.
Let's just move on. But I think you're making a connection. I don't know how that wording got in the contract, but it doesn't really apply to patient transport.
Well, what I want to do is make sure that we have it very clear so we don't have to have an arbitrator determine it for us in the future.
I would agree with you on that. I don't like arbitrators.
We rarely win.
Is that it for the discussion? Move on to the next item is a resolution 14071, resolution for necessity of levying a tax and exceeding the 10 mil limitation. I have a copy here I'd like to pass out to the trustees. It has blanks in there for the millage amount, and when you vote on the resolution, you will state the millage amount. Now, once again, this resolution is not putting it on the ballot. This resolution is we're sending this down to the Lucas County Auditor to certify the dollar amount that this resolution is asking for. We will get that back from the auditor, and hopefully it'll be the amount we're thinking. Once again, we'll have to do another resolution. If you're comfortable with the dollar amount that the auditor certifies, then we do another resolution actually where we will put it on the ballot. So this resolution actually is just saying our intent to levy and asking the auditor how much will this levy bring in officially, and we actually get a certificate from the auditor stating that. And then when I get that, I'll come back to the board and say this is what the auditor said, Are you comfortable with it? If that's the case, then we have another resolution where we're actually putting it on the ballot.
I'll move approval of Resolution 14071.
And put in the millage that you would like to see in that
Oh,
resolution.
the one, at the fiscal officer's recommendation of 1.5 million.
Second?
You'll call the roll, Mr. Randall?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Genowine?
No.
Next item,
That brings you up.
Yeah. I don't have anything more to say, no report.
You didn't get all those numbers computed like Mr. Huffman did in the one day?
No.
he was here early this morning.
Open discussion, did anybody sign in?
No signatures.
All right, I would like to offer a motion to adjourn at 4. What? I thought they said, did anybody sign in?
No.
No, okay. Offer a motion to adjourn at 4:44.
I thought you told me you wanted to take it off.
No,
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said,
I thought you said it first.
oh, would you like to speak? I'm sorry, Mr. Hayes did sign in.
Okay, sorry,
All right, come
my
on up.
fault.
Well, it's been a long road, and I can surely understand what John is saying. Contracts are very, very difficult, as I personally well know. I think the 1.5 is a little bit shy. I think it should be 1.3 quarters, but that's just because I know how the money falls off as time goes on. I don't think the public, these are just my opinion, I don't think the public really cares if it's 1.5 or 1.75, as long as you keep it under $100 in the cost of raising for a $150,000 house. There again is my opinion. I like the way we're going to try and set it up, that we're going to use the county squad, and then the other two entities and list. The thing that I set there, and I still have a problem with, I do not have a problem if the contract says we need 2 more men. I can see through attrition and everything else, and the growing of the amount of calls. But I do have a problem if we sell this to the public as part of a transport unit,
Right.
that all of a sudden, we find out that we need 3 more people to run this. And that's the question that I have right now, just listening. I don't know, and I'm not posing that to you because I don't know if you guys even know or what. But, and I'm not against more, but we need, if that's the way we're gonna go, then let's make darn sure we have enough money. I can understand the feelings, I'm not sticking up for John, but I can understand the feelings of grievances. I dealt with a lot of union people, and I know. And I think it was unfortunate that came about at that, and I really know very little about it, and I don't want to even go there. That's not my business. But I think we need to move on, and I have to agree with Neil. We have to service the people that are out there. But I do like John's attitude of watching the money, because you know how I am. I'm pretty stickler on that too. So I think if we prove to the public what we're giving them and be upfront with them, I think that's the way to go, and I personally don't have a problem. I would recommend it. So with that being said, I wanted to say that because I've been an advocate at both sides, and I'm truly with the fire department. I think they've taken the waste out of it by watching the budgets. I sat in on a couple budget meetings. I'll never do that again. That's pretty boring stuff, But that's just my personal opinion. Do you have a comment, John? I see you kind of...
No, that never once has service been a part of this discussion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we hold our fire department up to anybody in the region, and
I agree.
we got the best. But as dollars and stuff creep up, and it's just, I like things to be a little bit more defined, and personally, I would have liked to have this information 3, 4, 5 months ago. I mean, I look back on interviews or articles in the Blade from December 30th and things, and really, there's been no progress up until the last month in this stuff. For me to get a lot of the information that I've requested and I talked about from day one, 2 or 3 days before we're going to vote on this, it doesn't give me the comfort level that I need to move forward with this. So I know there's been a lot of work, and I know that a lot of people are committed to this, but again, I think from the start, we said everybody needs to be on the same page, and I don't think we're there.
I can appreciate what you're saying, not getting the information, and I would hope after this meeting now that the parties involved would get you all the information and documentation and data you would need. If this township can't provide that to you, then we got bigger problems than we'd ever thought with all the data and everything that we keep track of. But,
to get a 2012 annual report 18 months after the year ends, it's not acceptable. And I've been clamoring since February about where are these reports. And, I get it 2 days before I'm going to vote on this. It does not give me the confidence to move forward. And that's why I voted the way I did.
I'm glad you explained that, and I hear what you're saying. I can't get you the report, so I don't know what else to say to that, other than I don't want to see the quality, and I don't want to see the inmates run the jail, okay? I'm a firm believer in that. I've been on both sides of the fence. I've been in both sides of the fence. But I don't like the inmates to run the jail. What I mean by the union to run the jail, you people run the jail, and that's the way it has to be. And that's why you have subordinates or people that do that. So with that being said, I strongly recommend that you get that they give you the information and that you go forward with your diligence on this and keep the public informed. So we don't say, or people don't say, hey, we're going to get this and we're going to get this, and then we don't come through with it, or we find out we're going to have 400,000, 500,000, 600,000, whatever the number is, overage in cost because we said we were going to have something and now we're stuck. I think that's where you're coming from. I don't know the workings of the fire department as far as is the question not that the two people are going to be hired, okay, 2 people, but are we going to run a transport unit with the same amount of manpower 20, 19, and 18 or whatever that shift is? That's the question I sit there and I have. I just don't know. I mean, if that's the case, then I don't think there should be a problem with a transport unit. But I haven't heard that specific thing said. Whether I would agree or disagree with it, but I've never heard that said. And that's where the cost overruns could really get out of hand with union contracts and things. All right, enough said.
Al, I would like to say that I don't think it's the union running this. I've been personally...
That's just a comment, to let you know where I come from.
But I want to be sure we set the record straight. I've spent a lot of time with the chief, a lot of time with the administrator. The chief mentioned tonight he's changing the way the equipment responds. We've hired 7 more, bring it up to 10. Part-time firefighters were doing that in this year's budget. So the notion that this is being run, it's just not correct. And I'll be willing to sit down with you at any time and give you the information. And I do think the plan is well thought out. There are things identified in years 6 and 7. If our commitment to the voters, and by the way, it may not be this board. You go out 7 years,
right.
I'm not sure we're all going to be here, but it's our job to tell the public what this can fund. And we've done that. Now it's going to be somebody else's job to be sure that happens. But we have 2 things, an aerial ladder truck and we have a 3rd fireman that somebody else is going to have to make that decision in that 6th and 7th year.
Yes, sir.
But I'm confident we can do it. And I'm confident whatever trustees are sitting here they'll
What
be
you-
able to make that commitment to the public.
What you just said, Mr. Crandall, I totally 100% agree with, except about the inmates running the jail. I negotiated with 3,700 construction workers, iron workers. I know how unions work. I know how they work. Trust me. So they will take, and just like anybody else, as much as they can take. So it has to be an equal balance on each side, because you have to have both to make it work. And I just, you know, I keep
think
hearing
we
union
have
contract, and I keep hearing grievances. Yeah, that tends to get the hair up on the back of my neck, especially at a negotiation time. But that being said, that's not my business. I just want to make sure we do the right thing and get enough money. Please don't short us, because we've been battling this for eons. Look at the police department, what I said last year. They're out 20-something, you know. I don't know who put that plan together. I was on a lot of rallies back then, but, you know, that's the way you're supposed to fund something, and then you control it. This being so short all the time is just crazy. So, you know, I don't want more taxes either, but as long as the
But I
money's
think
spent.
we have a good relationship.
I do too,
with our
I do too.
union.
Well, all right,
And not just this department, all of our unions.
well, good.
Chief Bowlby, stop smiling back there.
I just wanted to make the air clear, I am for the...
Thank you, Al.
Thank you, Al. Now, I think we already have a motion. Did you start a motion?
I started a motion to adjourn at, we'll change it to 4:55.
Second. Okay, call the roll, Mr. Crandall.
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney.
Yes.
Mr. Genowine.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
See you the